So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me. It's great to be here and be a part of SETSI's community of practice here. I also just want to take a quick minute. It's obviously Remembrance Day here. So yeah, I'd just like to honour the courage, sacrifice, and resilience of those that have served and certainly continue to serve in the pursuit of peace and justice. Certainly, as we reflect on the legacies of service and the cost of conflict. I think we all should commit to certainly building systems that uphold dignity, provide reconciliation and social well-being for all communities. Um, so yeah, look, a little bit about myself, Australian by background, if that wasn't immediately obvious to the listeners. I grew up on a sheep and wheat farm about 6 hours west of Sydney. Went to Sydney for university and then studied engineering and relatively quickly, I guess, realized that I wasn't going to be an engineer and fell into the world or was mentored into the world of investment banking. So started my career at Deutsche Bank in Sydney, spent some time in London as well. And then really got an opportunity to work with an entrepreneur and realized that working at that earlier stage of the market was much more appealing to me. So left Deutsche Bank, joined Grant Thornton's corporate finance team in Sydney. Spent the better part of 8 years or so there working with entrepreneurs and building their businesses and helping a couple exit. And then met my wife, who's Canadian, followed her back here to Toronto, joined a firm called Collins Barrow that became RSM Canada, and continued working in that space through to the summer of 2021. And that's when I founded Waterpoint Lane, partnered with a group of investors and family offices, and had a thesis around the opportunity to invest in the future of our food system, where technology, our food system, and sustainability lie. And so that was the start of Waterpoint Lane in 2021. In 2023, I partnered up with a former colleague of mine, Mayfan Shi, and we launched our first fund in the summer of 2023. So now, as we continue to build Waterpoint Lane, we continue to be focused at that intersection of technology with our food system, and now continuing to expand around what that means for our health and wellness markets as well. And we have a real mission to drive social innovation and community empowerment. So our focus is on supporting founders and organizations that are building regenerative systems, which are also scalable. And certainly our view is that with scale comes true impact. And so we're intently focused on partnering with those founders that demonstrate that ambition to both grow significantly while also delivering on social and impact outcomes. And certainly our view and certainly the data will show that this is where the best outcomes for LP investors lie as well. So outside of the core of day to day with Waterpoint Lane, I also believe that systemic change starts with intergenerational learning, and so love to support missions from mentoring at university level to things like the Eco Club program at my daughter's elementary school level as well.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much for that. I mean, that's so, I mean, let me just be quiet. I want to dive deep into exactly what your business is about. So, like, what inspires you about the work that you do?
I think that the most inspiring thing is the founders that we work with, their courage to really challenge the extractive models and build ventures that are rooted in culture and community. Every day we're talking to founders that are either in our portfolio or certainly meeting new founders that are constantly challenging the art of what's possible. Um, they're seeing challenges in our food, health, and wellness systems, and designing solutions that lead to better productivity, better access, improved sustainability. And so we're working with great founders across Canada, the US, the UK that have, a vision for a better future. And I certainly kind of feel like that we're privileged to work with these leaders and do our best to help support their missions, be it through capital or through some more operational support that we can get involved in through the broader ecosystem that we also have.
Fantastic. And so what are some of the challenges or barriers that you face in your work, and how have you overcome them or in the process of overcoming them?
Yeah, look, I think we kind of see two main barriers. The first one that we certainly are facing at the moment and continue to face on a regular basis is the translation of impact across the different audiences and what does that mean? Kind of ranging from our LP investors to just broader community stakeholders. So we're constantly working to make the data meaningful, kind of actionable stories that are coming out of our portfolio and the broader ecosystem, and certainly making that strategy inclusive. I think it's often a misconception that impact investing means focusing on lower returns. Notwithstanding that the empirical evidence really does demonstrate that impact investments have either matched and or exceeded traditional investing approaches over both the short and long time frames. Numerous studies have kind of looked at this. Morgan Stanley, I know, did one that examined thousands of funds through I think it was like 2004 through 2020, and found that sustainable funds delivered returns above or better than conventional options. And kind of translating that to new investors to the space, I think is crucial for kind of long-term growth. I think the rationale behind that, I think we often lose, and so we just have to continue to kind of focus on the why of that outcome, and it's not coincidental. It's kind of rooted in companies that are building stronger corporate fundamentals and operational excellence, and the companies that embed this view of equity and resilience are just ultimately kind of building stronger companies. So kind of translating that into these conversations, I think is one of the bigger challenges that we face. The second is access. So we meet, and there are many transformative founders out there, especially from equity deserving communities, that just face systemic hurdles in funding and especially in visibility. So we address this by embedding reconciliation and equity into our investment frameworks, and ultimately by creating spaces like SETC's obviously community of practice, where this work can move out of isolation and become part of a broader and collective movement.
Exactly, exactly. Impact measurement is so important, and you know, data is all the rave. It's the new gold. So, but it's very important to analyze these things and know what type of impact is being made in which communities are best of being affected with these, different, practices that are being put out. So, yes, I totally agree. It's very, very necessary. Um, so now, is there anything new that you want to share with us? Anything that you have that you want to amplify?
Yeah, look, I think we're kind of focusing on a couple of things right now. Obviously, like we're continuing to build, Waterpoint Lane to be, a leader in both the Canadian venture capital space, but also just the global venture capital space in impact investing, especially obviously as it pertains to food, health, and wellness. That's our core kind of priority. That's our niche, and it's certainly where both me and my partner and our collective kind of board of advisors have expertise and skill set. So that kind of means that we're focusing on a number of priorities right now. The first is kind of to what I mentioned earlier, strategic storytelling. We craft both materials for our investors and potential investors, and also just having kind of broader conversations with the ecosystem, be it from government through to public and private companies, to academia around blending impact metrics and returns. We continue to see the alignment of innovation and impact as being the core driver for sustainable long-term returns for LP investors. And we obviously will continue to align with investors that kind of believe and obviously understand in this. Um, the second is around that operationalizing our equity. So making sure that the investment decisions that we make reflect diverse lived experiences and systemic awareness. So we want to back founders that are creating platforms that are disrupting these food, health, and wellness markets. But in doing so, we're focused on better systems for all, not just for a few.
Exactly. Awesome. So tell me, Ben, how do you feel about the future of social impact, globally?
You look at like I'm generally hopeful. I think we see short-term bumps along the road. But if we kind of step back and look at it from a macro perspective, and as you say, from a global perspective, then I think the trend is going in the right directions. So um, I think that the broad future is certainly continuing to look on a positive nature. And you know at times we kind of have to endure areas, jurisdictions, governments, etc., that kind of take a step back occasionally, for hopefully that as kind of changes come through, on a government basis, or regime changes, etc., that they get kind of back on track. So I think platforms like Setsi, obviously amplifying underrepresented voices and fostering this intergenerational collaboration is the future, and the future of social impact will be shaped by those that can understand this complexity, and build coalitions across the various differences that occur as a result of that. So kind of again coming back to a point that I made earlier, as we shift from silos to kind of broader ecosystem thinking, that's the shift that is powerful and will create the change that ultimately is required.
Absolutely. I'm hopeful as well, especially, what we do is laying a foundation, to carry on to the next generation. And that's so vital because, we're dealing with a whole new generation that is asking all the pertinent questions to, what are we leaving for them? What is it that they have to carry on to the next life at this point, the next chapter of life. So, very, I stay hopeful, but at the same time, a lot of things do have to be cleared out, ironed out, so that we can move on, because social impact is really nothing new. Our grandparents, our great grandparents, we did it.
Exactly.
They did it. We needed a cup of sugar. We helped in certain things. So social impact has been around for hundreds of years. So, but
Yeah.
bringing it back around in this, different time frame of economy and those things, like, it's like a reintroduction. Which
Well,
is
yeah,
fun.
and I would say at times, like, everything, we can somewhat get lost in the scope of what social impact ultimately means. But
Hmm.
sometimes, to your point, it can be as simple as that, cup of sugar to the neighbor type of concept, right? Like small
That's it.
steps and small outcomes can lead to ripple effects that create much longer and lasting opportunity as well.
That's it. That's it. That's amazing. So, if I was to ask you, what does success look like to you? What would you say?
Yeah, it's a tough tough question. I think um, you know, I would say that probably the first point, and somewhat to what we're kind of talking about just now, there's no end point. There's no kind of goal line that we need to cross. This is a continual evolution and movement that will continue to adapt and evolve over time. But I think for what we're trying to do on our side is, we're trying to help catalyze a future where capital is a tool for healing and regeneration. So we look at a couple of things. We want to partner, support, and ultimately help build ventures that uplift access, communities and ecosystems. We want to partner with and work with investors who see impact as a multiplier, not as a trade-off. And thirdly, we want youth that feels empowered to help shape social and economic life. Really just as Setsi obviously envisions as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's it. So, wow, Ben, this has been really cool. Really appreciate you so much, all the great work that you're doing. So, my last question for you is just your closing thoughts and calls to actions at this time.
Yeah, I think if anyone's like kind of wondering about how to contribute, I think like I said before, small steps. Don't get lost in the scope of all of what this all means, but just start by asking better questions. Just talk about who's missing around the decision-making table to make more informed choices. What stories aren't being told, and ultimately kind of support leaders who build with care. Systemic change is not solo, it's a collective rhythm. So, we want to work with people, we want to talk to people. If anyone's listening that is interested about what's going on in our food, health, and wellness systems, and wants to talk to us about how to partner for sustaining impact, then absolutely reach out to myself or my colleague Mayfan, and we'd love to connect and talk to people about it in more detail.
Awesome. Well, once again, we thank you so much, and we wish you much continued success in your journey. It's not an easy one, but it's doable. In Africa, there's a saying. If you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together, right? So
Absolutely.
again, on behalf of Setsi, we thank you so much, and we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. And we give thanks and credence to all the fallen soldiers. We thank you for your service. Thanks again, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.